One day I received orders from my headquarters to find out what was behind the German Workers' Party. I was told to go and take a look at the organization and then make a report. My impression was neither good nor bad. The founders had no idea what it means to make a party, let alone a movement. This was how Hitler spent his first months in Munich. He still worked for the army, but he was no longer fighting foreign enemies. His assignment was to sniff out the enemies within Germany. The army sent him to spy on communist groups. As a hub of right-wing activity, the Bavarian government would not tolerate communists in their midst. Back in 1919, communists took over Bavaria, calling it the People's State of Bavaria. Its leader was a man named Kurt Eisner, who was Jewish. A right-wing activist assassinated Eisner, and the People's State of Bavaria was no more. At least in this case, the killer was sentenced to life in prison, specifically Landsberg prison, a place Hitler would become familiar with later. There would not be another People's State of Bavaria because the army was watching. The group they sent Hitler to spy on, the German Workers' Party, sounded suspiciously communist, but they weren't. The way Hitler describes it, this was a small group of losers. Its founder, Karl Shirer, seemed to like it that way. The brains of the operation was a railroad worker named Anton Drexler, who loved German nationalism and loved workers' rights. But he hated communism and he hated Jews, and to people like him, they were the same thing. There was something about this strange little group that appealed to Hitler. In Chapter 1, we met Karl Lueger, the mayor of Vienna when Hitler was living there. Hitler liked Lueger, but thought his anti-Semitism was fake and that he wasn't populist enough. But this Anton Drexler fellow, his anti-Semitism was real. His desire to unite German workers was populist. His German Workers' Party was a small band of losers who hadn't readjusted to normal society after the war. He was a loser who hadn't readjusted to normal society after the war. Why not throw in with them? It would give him something to do, and since there were so few of them, maybe he could become the alpha of the group. And that's exactly what happened. It was in the German Workers' Party that Hitler learned he could give one hell of a speech. People were captivated by this weird little man. His speeches drew people into the group. One thing that people said about him in those days was that he meant what he said. He wasn't the most educated or even the most eloquent speaker, but he was the most convincing. He was convincing because he was convinced about what he was saying. The leaders of the party recognized his usefulness. One of them was a writer and journalist named Dietrich Eckart. He was one of the first formally educated people to befriend Hitler and had a tremendous influence on him. In fact, it was Eckart who first recommended that Hitler become the leader of the German Workers' Party. With Hitler at the helm, maybe they really could build a populist movement. In 1920, Hitler resigned from the army so he could lead the German Workers' Party. The first task was to figure out what they believed. Hitler and Drexler worked out 25 main points. Point number 1, to unite all of the German people into one nation. Point number 2, cancel the Treaty of Versailles. Point number 4 is when it starts to get dark. Only those of the German race could be citizens of Germany. Their religion didn't matter as long as they weren't Jewish. No Jew could be a citizen of Germany. Point 25, a strong government for the German people to live under. These were the nationalist parts of Hitler's philosophy, and he never wavered from them. There were other points that need explanation. Point 10 said that every citizen should have a job and enough to eat. Point 11 said people could only earn money from work, meaning no profits for bankers or stockbrokers. Point 14 said the government should own large corporations. Point 15 wanted citizens to be taken care of in old age. To people who didn't know any better, this sounded kinda socialist, kinda left-wing. As a matter of fact, the party would have a new name. The National Socialist German Workers' Party, the NSDAP, or more familiarly, the Nazi Party. Socialist? Didn't right-wingers hate socialists? Weren't they murdering them in the streets? Didn't Anton Drexler hate them and think socialism was a Jewish conspiracy? Why were he and Hitler saying all of these socialist-sounding things and changing the name of their party to the National Socialists? Because their goal was to build a populist movement. Their goal was to get as many people into their camp as possible. Germany was a country of very left-wing and very right-wing people. Their platform and their name was designed to appeal to all of them. This is why some people don't even refer to the Nazis as a political party. Political parties have coherent platforms. The 25 Points Manifesto of the Nazi Party is all over the place. Political parties work within a democratic system where they compete for votes with other political parties. The Nazis competed in elections because they had to, but Hitler made it very clear that, in his Germany, there would be no political parties outside of the Nazis. For these reasons, the Nazis are sometimes called not a party, but an anti-party. They said whatever they needed to say to attract as many people as possible. Their core beliefs were represented in the new flag Hitler designed for the party. The swastika was a symbol found on ancient temples in the Middle East and Asia. Some Freikorps groups had used it, including ones involved in the Kampf Putsch. To Hitler, it symbolized the German people's connection to the ancient world as an Aryan race. Historically speaking, this is nonsense, but it gave the flag a kind of mystical vibe. Right-wing groups are known for using spooky, mystical imagery, like the Ku Klux Klan, having a spooky name and dressing like ghosts. The red, white, and black colors come from the German imperial flag, adopted when Germany became a unified country in 1871. The meaning of the flag is pretty simple: the greatness of the German people and German nation. With their 25 points and new flag, the Nazis were ready to become a popular mass movement. This was the main reason why Karl Harrer, one of the founders of the party along with Drexler, left. He wanted it to remain the quaint little club Hitler first encountered in 1919. He didn't like the fact that Hitler and Drexler were trying to turn it into something bigger. But Dietrich Eckart, the man who suggested Hitler lead the party, loved it. He ran a newspaper, the Volker Beobachter, which roughly translates to the People's Observer, that became the mouthpiece of the National Socialist Party. Eckart was the editor up until his substance abuse caught up with him and he died in 1923. That's when Hitler took over as editor, and its readership almost tripled, from 8,000 to 23,000 people. 1923 was an important year for Hitler for another reason as well. It was the year he tried to take over Germany.